December 27, 1941. Nazi-occupied Norway. German machine gunners scan the frozen fjords for enemies. There is just one thing that set this particular morning apart from mundane one in wartime Europe. Over the surrounding waters, bagpipes can be heard. Moments later, the same British officer who was jamming on mentioned bagpipes moments ago on distant barge is charging ashore with his sword in hand, leading his men in an attack on an island. As is the English custom, it's just one episode from the life of one of the craziest soldiers I've ever encountered. His name? Mad Jack Churchill. Just to give you a hint about the scope of this man's achievements, we're talking about a man who killed Nazis with a bow and arrow, escaped from concentration camp twice, captured an entire German garrison almost single-handedly, motor racing, acting and modeling in the meantime. When I first stumbled upon Jack's story, I thought it was a World War II themed urban legend based on propaganda. I mean, this is the kind of shit military enthusiasts would come up with after downing a couple of cold ones during a James Bond movie. After some research, I think most stories about this man are true. But one of the four statements mentioned before may be questionable. Keep watching, we'll get there. So, let me take you on a journey through the uncanny life of Mad Jack Churchill. And by the end of this video, you will understand what this man was all about. So, who was Jack Churchill? He was born on September 16, 1906 in Colombo, Ceylon. Because back then Britain was still playing finders keepers. By the age of 20, after attending school, young Jack was sent to Sandhurst, Britain's West Point. That's where he initially learned which end of the shovel to use to bash his enemies' heads in. When he learned this valuable skill, Jack was commissioned into the Manchester Regiment and posted to Burma. I would like to focus just on two stories of his time in Burma. The first one directly hints at how his later years will go down. It begins in Pune, the city where he had just finished his signals course. He was now faced with the prospect of traveling over 2,200 kilometers across India to catch the boat in Calcutta and return to his battalion in Rangoon. He grabbed his Zenith bike, asked himself,
"How hard can that be?"
and set off. Despite some setbacks and a close encounter with a water buffalo,
he's headbutting me.
he actually made it. As it turns out, the first Top Gear special took place in India. The second important thing I'd like to mention is during his stay in Malmö, he learned to play the bagpipes, of all things. It's important for our later stories, and judging by his relationship with this instrument over the years, I think he saw an opportunity to wage psychological warfare with Scottish folk music. Before you think this is stupid, keep in mind that one of his inspirations was Daniel Laidlaw, awarded Victoria Cross exactly for inspiring his comrades by music. In 1936, after 10 years of army service and his regiment's return to England, Jack quit the army. Soldiering without sightseeing was no fun. So, what does a professional warrior do when there's no war? First, Jack was a newspaper editor in Kenya. That's the only average Joe thing that I read about his life. Because right after, he became a male model. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an actual photo, but I found a suitable visualization. He appeared as a movie extra in The Thief of Baghdad. He went on a grand tour of Europe with his friend Rex King Clark. They drove around in an MG, Jack wore a kilt, and boys did boy things. For example, in Italy, they climbed Vesuvius, where Jack played the bagpipes on the rim of an active volcano. Since I've read about it, it's on my to-do list. In addition to vibing on volcanoes, he took his piping to competitive level by taking second place in a military piping competition in 1938. Most importantly for our later story though, Jack took up archery in addition to music. Maybe that's the understatement, because next year, in 1939, he represented Great Britain at World Archery Championships in Oslo. Are we even surprised at this point? Then September 1939 happened. Germany went on a Lebensraum shopping spree, Britain said,
"Oh hell no!"
And suddenly Jack Churchill's love for the army became extremely relevant. 1940. The British Expeditionary Force is retreating towards Dunkirk. On May 27th, Jack Company was surrounded by German forces. Jack takes control because his commander is wounded. He orders the establishment of defensive positions. To establish said position, Jack climbed into a granary where he spotted 5 Germans about 30 meters away. Then he apparently went,
"You hear me talking, hillbilly boy? I ain't through with you by damn sight. I'ma get medieval on your ass."
He pulled out his longbow, because of course he had brought one with him to France, and shoot one of the Germans right in the chest. I wasn't able to find the exact reason why this man was armed with a bow at that moment instead of a carbine or sidearm. My educated guess is that he was out of ammo, had given ammo to another soldier, or intended to be stealthy. Unfortunately, this story is the one that may not be true, because I found a statement that, however, as he later admitted to a fellow officer who had watched him fire an arrow through a thick barn door, he had been denied his wish. "We went into the village one night to ambush a German patrol, but the driver reversed the pickup into a wall and backed up my bows," he confessed. "So, when the Jerrys did come, I had to shoot them with my rifle." But this is a case of source versus source. If he actually done it, Jack Churchill would have scored the only longbow kill in the World War II era. In 1940, against Wehrmacht. Wo ist die Wunderwaffe, Herr Führer? Regardless of used weapon, his actions during retreat earned Jack his first military cross. 1941, Operation Archery. That's the name. I honestly don't know if the command was just laughing at Jack's supposed achievement here. Target?
Vågsøy.
Norway, a Nazi-controlled island with a German bomb factory disguised as a fish oil plant. Jack Churchill was the second in command of 105 men in a raid against Germans stationed at Måløy Island. Picture this. You are a commando deployed to take an enemy island. It's freezing cold and your landing craft is cutting through the icy water toward heavily defended positions before dawn. And you hear bagpipes playing the march of a cavalryman at full volume. Jack stands in the front with his bagpipes under his arm, playing to his heart's content.
The intrepid bagpiper who led the commandos in battle now leads them in a dance of joy. It's a well-earned diversion they seek. A deck of cards and a friendly game, a restful sleep, or a trip to the barber.
I don't think I have anything that can top this. Then the boat hits the beach, and this guy jumps out with a basket-hilted Scottish broadsword, charging like it's 1066. Despite his flourish, the tactical execution was flawless. They captured the German commander and 15 soldiers, then withdrew on a schedule. But this is not the end of the story. After the mission, Jack was wounded. Not by the German bullet, but by a British demolition charge. His forehead was bleeding a bit, but he didn't go to the medic. He celebrated with a captured German wine instead. However, the cut heals too quickly for the proper war hero photos. So, what does Jack do? He started touching up the scar with his wife's lipstick to maintain the wounded hero look for the press. And this earned him a bar to his military cross. Fast forward to 1943. Jack Churchill is about to capture an entire German garrison by himself. This year, September 15th, at the Salerno landings, the Allies were trying to establish a beachhead but were getting hammered by the Germans who held the high ground. Jack's mission? Infiltrate post outside the town of Måløy and take prisoners for intelligence. He takes one corporal, Corporal Raffle, and sneaks up to the heavily fortified position at night. In this squad, they captured 2 German sentries right away. Now, our protagonist orders Raffle to keep an eye on one of the captured soldiers, put his revolver lanyard around another's neck, keeping his sword pointed at his hostage's back. Then, he approaches the next sentries and forces the captured soldier to identify himself when challenged by further defenses, subsequently disarming them one by one. By the night's end, Jack had personally captured 42 German soldiers, including an entire 81mm mortar crew. On top of that, he made them carry their own weapons down the mountain. As he put it, "I always bring prisoners back with their weapons. It weighs them down." Just took their rifle bullets out. He also made them take care of those weapons while they were in captivity. I maintain that as long as you tell a German loudly and clearly what to do, if you are senior to him, he will cry "Jawohl" and get on with it enthusiastically and efficiently, whatever the surrounding situation. That is why they make such a marvelous soldiers. Jack Deed was so impressive that he was recommended for Victoria Cross. Unfortunately, it was downgraded to the Distinguished Service Order, probably because the review board couldn't write a citation that didn't sound overblown like the report made by the Soviets. 1944, Yugoslavia. Operation announced. A commando raid on Brač Island. Jack commanded 1,500 Yugoslav partisans and British Commandos. During the nighttime assault, Jack played his bagpipes while leading the assault of his forces. Under heavy machine gun and mortar fire, the main attack failed. Defending against counterattack, Jack lay down on the summit with a small group of Royal Marines. Then he rolled back onto his back, setting his pipes to his lips, played "Will Ye Not Come Back Again?" He continued until he was stunned by a grenade.
Hey, you're finally awake.
When he woke up, he was a prisoner of war with a couple of other survivors. To keep track of his adventures as a prisoner of war, we will give Jack one smelling Churchill for every escape. At first, Germans asked themselves the same question as you did. Is this man related to Winston Churchill? No, he is not. The Germans flew him to Berlin for interrogation. When they discovered he was not related to the Prime Minister, they sent him to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. In September, Jack and another inmate named James tunneled under the camp wall and escaped into the German countryside. Their goal was the Baltic coast. As they approached Rostock, they were spotted by local workers. While escaping, they climbed fences to create distance. Unfortunately, one of those fences was the fence of the workers' camp. So, despite getting so far, our escapees essentially turned themselves in. We have to take one smiling Churchill away for this. Next, in early 45, Jack was transferred to Niederdorf in Austria. On April 20th, Jack and the other prisoners were working outside the camp despite the storm. Apparently, the terrible weather wasn't a deal breaker for the German soldiers. However, the same weather gave Jack the opportunity to escape. When the camp floodlights suddenly went dark, he just walked into the darkness.
Oh, okay.
For 8 days, Jack lived on stolen vegetables cooked in a rusting can. With a sprained ankle and wearing an RAF uniform that made him a target for every German patrol, he was hoping to reach Verona in Italy, located 240 kilometers away. Near the Brenner's Pass, Jack spotted an American armored column below him. He limped down the mountainside and barely, but still, managed to stop the formation. The American crew saw an exhausted and disheveled scarecrow in a British uniform who was barely able to walk or talk. Nonetheless, he threw them a crisp military salute. The man had a spine, and like that, Jack Churchill survived Nazi concentration camps and ended his World War II story by hitchhiking with American tanks. Shortly after, the USA dropped fancy new bombs on Japan, and the global conflict came to an end. What was Jack's take on it? If it hadn't been for those damned Yankees, we could have kept the war going for another 10 years.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
His disappointment notwithstanding, Jack did not ditch his uniform after the conflict ended, unlike his first episode in the army. He continued to serve and used his time between deployments to take a parachuting course and earn his wings. At the age of 40, what awaited him next was his last chance to experience combat. He was deployed to Palestine. To understand this, we need some brief introduction. In 1948, Britain's 25-year mandate over Israel, set up by the League of Nations after World War I, was coming to an end. This mandate meant that Great Britain was to provide administrative advice and assistance until the people covered by the mandate are able to stand alone. The imminent establishment of State of Israel created tensions resulting in widespread acts of terrorism by Jewish extremists against the British, as well as between Arabs and the Jews, especially in and around Jerusalem. You may be surprised to learn that Jerusalem is quite important in this region. And Jerusalem was exactly where Jack was deployed as second in command of 1st Highland Light Infantry. On April 13th, he was overseeing a battalion inspection parade when he received news of a terrorist attack. The message stated that one of the Jewish convoys had been ambushed by the Arabs. He seized the driver, an armored dingo, and conducted a brief reconnaissance mission. When he arrived at the post that signaled danger, he got to the rooftop for a better view. From there, he saw a convoy of ambulances marked with the Red Star of David, carrying doctors, nurses, and patients, as well as buses and trucks under fire. Ambush was in full swing about 100 yards away, with much firing by the Arabs from the houses below on the far side of the road, and to a lesser extent from the Jewish guards at the convoy. Jack also spotted a large number of Arabs, many armed, swarming up the Valley of the Walnut, below the Arab stronghold of Sheikh Jaha, to join those in the houses. Seeing this, he recognized that heavier equipment was needed, but due to Great Britain's status, all the HQ granted him were 2 staghounds, and they begged him not to use their guns on top of that.
Remember, no Russian.
Organizing those would take time though, so he grabbed an APC and a small armored police car on his way back from his battalion base. He parked those 3 vehicles somewhere near this crossing, and that's where he decided to just approach the convoy by himself in the gun sights of Arab fighters. I know how this sounds, just stay with me here. Keep in mind that he just left the parade ground moments ago. in his own words. As I walked along, swinging my blackthorn walking stick, I grinned like a mad from side to side, as people are less likely to shoot at you if you smile at them. Of course, having come straight of a battalion parade, I was very dressed up. In granary, tunic, some bowie belt, but no claymore, worse luck. Hilt, hairsporan, and red and white diced hose, and white spats. This outfit in the middle of the battle, together with my grinning at them, may have made the Arabs laugh, because most of them have a sense of humor. Anyway, they didn't shoot me. When he reached the convoy, he offered trapped people extraction with APC, and after a quick back and forth with them, everyone was safely extracted. No, not really. Despite multiple offers, the ambushed people declined his help. They said the Israeli army would save them. Let's leave this brain rot for a bit and roll back. You may be wondering whether Jack was truly so charismatic that he managed to avoid being shot. Most likely. But I think that the main reason he was able to pass safely was that the Arabs understood their attack would not be blocked if they refrained from firing on British units. Unfortunately, despite that, after a short conversation with the trapped people, one of Jack's men was shot. He wasn't smiling wide enough. He left the scene with his wounded man, and that marked the end of Jack's involvement in an ambush that came to be known as Hatzach Massacre. To not keep you in a suspense, British forces refrained from directly intervening. When the two staghounds arrived, about 6 hours after the shootout started, they could only look at the aftermath. 77 Jews were dead and 25 were wounded. Only 8 convoy occupants managed to escape unharmed. In 1953, Jack was posted to the School of Land-Air Warfare in Newcastle, north of Sydney, as an instructor. There, he passed down all his knowledge and unconventional doctrines. Australia taught him something too in return, that it wasn't fear of the spiders.
Also, yes.
During his time in Newcastle, Jack took up surfing. Just like with archery, he took it to the highest level. He designed his own boards and made a special hand paddle to make himself faster. After returning to England in 1954, he became the first person in history to surf over about 1.5 miles of the River Severn's 5-foot-high tidal bore. For context, this feat was impressive enough to be reported by The Times. He collected and enjoyed radio-controlled scaled model ships, mostly warships. The technical and visual quality of these models supposedly rivaled the best 40K miniatures. He also liked bigger boats, steamboats to be exact, and regularly took cruises along Thames in them. Oh, and since Burma, he never gave up on his passion to motorcycles. In 1952, he won the Senior Clubsman Isle of Man TT class races at record lap speeds, on his beloved bike, the Vincent HRD Black Shadow. You may think, oh, he was riding on some prehistoric piece of junk. Well, this bike is considered to be one of the first superbikes in history, with an estimated top speed of around 200 km an hour. He was 47 years old when he raced this thing. Jack Churchill left the army in 1959 as Lieutenant Colonel, having received the Distinguished Service Order and Military Cross. For the next 13 years, he worked as retired officer in London districts. He lived life on his own terms, doing what he liked without caring what others may thought. There is one last anecdote from that time period that sums it up perfectly. Imagine the scene. A commuter train is about 1 mile short of its destination of walking, 30 miles out of London. 5 home-going London city workers look on in astonishment as one of their number, who has just been poring over documents in an official-looking Ministry of Defense briefcase, gets up from his seat, opens the window, hurls his briefcase out into the night, closes the window and regains his seat. There is an appalled and astonished silence. No one knows that this is the eccentric one-time Colonel Mad Jack Churchill, and he's simply deposing his work into his large back garden to lighten his load on his walk home from the station. After a few more years, his story came to an end. On March 8, 1996, John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill, aged 89, died peacefully at St. Stephen's Hospital in Chertsey. Was Jack Churchill actually insane? Or was he operating on a higher level of reality? Probably both. Jack had a philosophy that most of us do not take too seriously. Life is an adventure, and adventures are supposed to be exciting. Despite that, every one of Jack's crazy military stunts served a purpose. Bagpipes boosted morale and intimidated enemies. His sword was a stealthy and stylish weapon that never ran out of ammo. And he used his seemingly reckless logic to bravely carry aid to other people. Initially, I aimed for this video to be about 15 minutes long. However, while researching Mr. Churchill, I came to the conclusion that most of the articles written about him are quite short, and videos are focused on this maniac with a bow and sword. In reality, this man was so much more. I decided to do him justice and bring his story to people's attention. I also decided to honor this man's legacy in other way. Via a link or QR code, you can access a site where you can purchase t-shirts featuring graphics inspired by various events from Jack Churchill's life. You could see me wearing them in this video. For the next 3 months, or longer if traffic allows, 10% of sales profit will go to the Red Cross. Most of us won't be faced with the possibility of marching in front of armed insurrectionists. But in some way, by supporting Red Cross, we can carry his legacy further into the world. I also intended to organize a fundraiser here on YouTube. But it turns out one must have at least 10,000 subscribers to do so. This brings me to my last topic. If you find this video worth your time, please subscribe so I can run the fundraiser on the next upload, which I am already working on. Give it a thumbs up and comment if you have any suggestions for improvement. Also, let me know if there's another inspiring figure you'd like me to make a video about in the future. Sincerely, thank you for watching, and before I see you in the next upload, I leave you with this quote from Jack's friend Rex King Clark. We could do with more like Jack Churchill, but perhaps not too many more.